I didn't install the lock to start a war. I installed the lock because my daughter Zoe needed somewhere in our house that was still hers. My brother-in-law, Sammy, lost his home after a rough divorce 10 months ago. A couple of months back, he asked if he and his twins, Loivia and Sloane, both 18, could stay with us a little while. My wife is his older sister. He said yes. We have one daughter, Zoe, 16. Zoe and the twins aren't close, but they've always been civil. I assumed it would be a few months of awkwardness, some juggling, and then everyone would find their rhythm. Instead, our rhythm turned into a rattle. The twins have a way of treating any room like a mall with no cashiers. If Zoe left lip balm on her desk, it migrated. If her hoodie was draped on her chair, it floated into the twins' room. Phone chargers, hair clips, a sketchbook, even her school laptop. If it wasn't literally attached to her, it tended to walk. Every time Zoe would complain, and every time Sammy shrugged. "Girls borrow," he'd say, like he was narrating a nature documentary. My wife called it typical teenage behavior, and I stared at the ceiling like it might drop a manual labeled "How to Raise the Only Child in a House Full of People Who Think You Overreacting." The last straw came in a little black box. Zoe saved up for a month to buy a $60 makeup palette that looked like a painter's kit. She unboxed it like a ceremony, swatched the colors on her arm, and slid it into her top drawer. That night, Sloane borrowed it for a TikTok tutorial, which apparently required mixing all the shades into a tragedy. Zoe found the palette on her bed, colors swirled to gray mud, and cried so hard she hiccuped. I told my wife I was buying a lock. She said she'd ask Sloane to apologize, as if an apology could remix pigment back into separate pans. When I came back from the hardware store with a simple keyed doorknob, Sammy stood in the hallway with his arms crossed like he was guarding the honor of teenagers everywhere. "My daughters aren't thieves," he snapped. "Girls borrow. She can't gatekeep a house we're all sharing." "Borrowing has a step," I said. "It's called asking." "She's 16, he shot back. "She doesn't need adult makeup anyway. Get her a $15 kit from the supermarket." "Her money? Her choice?" I answered. "Your girls don't get a vote." I installed the lock. Zoe exhaled like a room had just returned to her. The silence that followed was political. Sammy barely looked at me. The twins stopped saying good morning. My wife kept busy with laundry. She folded like she was wringing out an apology she didn't want to offer. A week passed. We adjusted. Or we pretended to. One Wednesday, I came home early. The house was quiet in the everyone has headphones on way. I set my keys down and noticed Zoe's door was closed, the new lock shining like an unpopular idea. Down the hall, the twins' door was open a crack. I heard whispering and the click, click, click of a curling iron. A smell like hairspray and mango gum seeped into the hallway. At dinner, Zoe mentioned she couldn't find her laptop charger. Olivia said she hadn't seen it. Sloane said Zoe loses everything. My wife changed the subject to whether like it was a hostage exchange. After dinner, Zoe went back to her room. I loaded the dishwasher. Sammy passed behind me and muttered, "She's going to grow up thinking she lives in a bank vault." I let it go. I shouldn't have. The next night, the power strip in the twins' room blew a fuse. I only know because I heard a pop like a slap and Sloane yelled, "Oops." I opened their door and saw everything I would later list to a police officer. Curling iron, flat iron, ring light, phone charger. Extra charger because the first one wasn't fast. Makeup lamp, a wax warmer, and a space heater. Every outlet and every inch of the 6-socket strip at capacity. "That's not a power strip," I said. "That's a campfire waiting for a song." "We do this every day," Olivia said. "It's fine. It's not fine," I answered. "You're going to unplug half this circus? Now." They rolled their eyes in stereo and unplugged exactly one thing, the wax warmer. The room still hummed. I found Zoe sitting on her bed, sketching her door locked. I knocked, and she unlocked it with a small smile. "Thank you for this," she said, palming the knob like it was a hand she trusted. "Don't thank me," I said. "Just keep it locked when you're not in here." Friday night, everything went wrong at once.
How?
My wife hosted her book club, which is code for 6 women laughing loudly at a novel steamy chapter and then discussing work stress over cheese. Zoe retreated to her room. The twins made plans to meet friends for milkshakes and selfies. Sammy settled in front of the TV with a sports documentary and volume set to I Live Here Now. Around 10, the twins returned. They were buzzing the way people do when their social battery has been replaced with caffeine. They went straight to their room, lights on, music barely not loud enough to be an argument. At 11:22, Zoe knocked on our bedroom door and said, "Do you smell something funny?" I stepped into the hallway and smelled it too faint and wrong. Not food. Not candles. Something plastic. Something electric. I moved toward the twins' room. The smell got louder. I opened their door and saw a white curl of smoke ribboning up from behind the dresser. The ring light glowed like a portal. Sloane was on her phone, Olivia was applying eyeliner, and neither looked impressed to see me. "Unplug everything," I said, calm in a way that makes teenagers think you're overreacting. "It's fine," Sloane said. The white curl darkened to gray. "Unplug," I repeated, which is when the ring light flickered. The power strip sparked, and a small flame shrugged up the wall like a bad idea finding oxygen. Everything after that felt like a movie I didn't want to star in. "Fire!" I shouted. "Everyone out." My wife appeared in the hall. Sammy barreled from the living room. The twins froze. I grabbed the extinguisher from the laundry room and sprayed. The flame recoiled, then found another path across the cheap wall tapestry. The smoke thickened, sour and fast. "Call 911, I yelled to my wife. "Now?" She dialed. Her hands shook, and she spoke with that strange, bright calm people use with dispatchers. "There's a fire in our house," she said. "Bedroom fire. We're evacuating." "Zoe?" I shouted down the hall. "Out!" Her door opened. She stepped into smoke. She covered her mouth with her sleeve and moved toward me, then hesitated. Zoe looked back at her desk where a framed photo of my late father sat. I waved her forward. "Leave it," I said. "Now." We grabbed shoes and nothing else. We counted heads. My wife, Sammy, the twins, Zoe, me, stepped onto the lawn coughing. The night air felt like mercy. The first fire engine arrived fast enough to make my knees buckle. The red lights sprayed the street in emergency language I didn't need translated. Firefighters hustled out in gear. That makes humans look like purpose. One of them, younger than me, with soot on his jaw, took the hose. Another asked if everyone was out. I said yes twice, like I was trying to convince the air. A neighbor stood on her porch in pajamas. Another filmed because that's how some people look at fear. I saw a glow behind our bedroom window. The fire moved quicker than logic. A police cruiser pulled in quietly behind the engines. 2 officers approached. One of them, a woman with hair braided tight, asked where the fire started. I pointed toward the twins' room. The other officer took notes with the patience of a person who knows the rest of the night will be long. "Anyone injured?" she asked. "Just smoke," I said. "Anyone inside?" she repeated. "No," I said. "No one." While the firefighters ran hose lines and carried ladders like extra spines, another engine arrived. A firefighter shouted something I didn't understand, and I watched water gush, steam bloom, flame hunch. Our home, the place we told ourselves we were safe, was being rewritten in front of us. Sammy put his hands on his head and repeated, "Oh my God," like a psalm he didn't know he knew. Sloane started crying, then didn't, then did again. Olivia shook like a phone on silent. Zoe slipped her hand into mine and squeezed so hard my bones remembered she was small once. The smell settled heavy on everything, burned plastic and drywall and a lifetime of meals. The officer with the braid walked back over. "We need to talk about the room where it started," she said gently. "Do you know if there were any appliances running? Space heater, iron, candles?" I looked at the twins. Sloane stared at the curb. "Power strip," I said. "And a lot of things plugged into it." The officer nodded. "We'll let the fire investigator confirm, because, for now, everyone stay put." Another firefighter approached with a question I didn't anticipate. "Does your daughter's room lock?" he asked. "Yes," I said, immediately defensive. "I gave her a lock." He nodded, like I'd answered correctly on a test I didn't know I was taking. "That probably helped compartmentalize," he said. "Closed doors, slow fire and smoke? Her door closed?" "Yes," I said, throat tight. "Good," he said. "You likely bought her time," Sammy overheard. He turned like a wind I was tired of standing in. He opened his mouth maybe to argue. maybe to apologize, but a firefighter called, and the moment ended with the sound of water on ruin. The fire died hard, like some wild thing that refuses to leave. An hour stretched and folded. Neighbors went back inside. The filming neighbor sat down. The red lights cycled like a heartbeat. Finally, a firefighter in a helmet flecked with white came over. "We stopped it in the back bedrooms," he said. "The twins' room is a loss. Smoke damage through the hall. Your daughter's room, minimal damage. Door was closed. Good call." I thanked him with a voice that didn't know how to be a voice anymore. They let us stand in the yard and watch steam climb into the sky. The officer with the braid returned with the investigator, a man who looked like he'd been called every night for 20 years and still cared enough to look closer. He asked about the power strip. He asked about wax warmers and ring lights and space heaters and hair tools. He asked if anyone had smelled anything burning before. He asked if anyone had seen sparks. Sloan told him the fuse had popped earlier in the week, then immediately looked at me like I had made her say it. "Any oxygen accelerants?" he asked. "Blank stares? Hairspray?" he clarified. "Aerosols?" The twins nodded. "Of course," he sighed, not unkindly. "It doesn't take much." The officer asked if we wanted medical evaluation for smoke inhalation. We declined because adrenaline is arrogant. She took our statements. She was so gentle, it made me want to confess to everything I've ever done wrong just to have her tell me it would be okay. And then, because the night wasn't finished with us, she said, "We will be filing an incident report listing probable cause as electrical overload with aerosol involvement. There may be citations for unsafe appliance use. Because the twins are 18, this falls on them, not you. Do you understand?" Sammy looked like someone had swapped the script he dememorized for a language he didn't speak.
Oh.
"They didn't mean," he started. "No one thinks they meant," she said. "But meaning doesn't undo physics." The firefighter in the soot-flecked helmet turned to me. "Sir, you handled this well. You got everyone out. Also that lock, people don't like to hear it, but closed doors are lifesavers. You likely saved your daughter from a very different night." The words landed like relief and accusation at the same time. I thought of the hallway arguments, the eye rolls, the silent treatments, the way everyone told me I was overprotective. I thought of Zoe's small hand on the doorknob and the way she slept better the first night she could lock it. I didn't cry until then. We couldn't stay in the house. Smoke makes that decision for you. Our neighbor across the street, an angel in slippers, came over with bottled water and spare blankets and a set of keys. "You can crash in our den," she said. "We're up anyway." We said yes. There is a humility to sleeping under someone else's blanket that I think you can appreciate until the firefighters leave and you recounting your people like beads on a necklace. At 3 a.m, Zoe whispered in the dark, "Dad." "Dad." "Yeah. Thank you for the lock." I kissed the top of her head the way I did when she was 5 and afraid of shadows. "You never needed my permission to be safe," I said. "You only needed my help." We slept like people sleep after almost. In the morning, reality came with coffee and a printout from the fire department. The investigator had written it clean. Electrical overload, aerosol acceleration, improper multi-device usage, probable origin, near power strip and wall tapestry. Recommendations included use of certified surge protectors, avoidance of daisy-chain power strips, and, in a sentence I planned to frame, closed bedroom door, likely prevented severe smoke intrusion into adjacent room. Sammy read the report 3 times. He didn't yell. He deflated. He looked 10 years older and 10 pounds lighter and very, very quiet. The twins sat on the couch, eyes swollen, clutching cups of tea they didn't drink. My wife sat beside them and rubbed their backs like she could press regret into relief. Then she looked at me with a face I hadn't seen since the day we brought Zoe home from the hospital, a face that had run out of easy answers. "I was wrong," she said, "about the lock, about borrowing, about all of it." I nodded because winning isn't as satisfying as not having to win. Would have been. The officer with the braid stopped by later with copies of reports and a list of resources insurance contacts. Smoke remediation companies, temporarily housing info. She also mentioned that because 2 neighbors had called 911 during the smoke buildup, an officer would follow up about potential citations for unsafe use of appliances. "Reckless endangerment isn't on the table," she said. "We may issue an educational citation." It's less about punishment and more about documentation and training. Sloane stared at the floor. I didn't know, she said. It's just, we've always done it that way. At Mom's too. Sometimes the way we've always done it was only luck, the officer said, not unkindly. Sammy asked me if I wanted them gone. It was a fair question wrapped in a shame he couldn't hide. I told him yes eventually. For now, we needed a plan. Insurance, a hotel for a week, then a rental. The twins would replace Zoe's ruined things first. The makeup, the hoodie, the chargers, the small things that signal respect. And they'd sit through a fire safety course the department offered. And they'd buy their own power strips. No, not power strips. One surge protector each, nothing daisy-chained, no tapestries hung over outlets, no aerosols near heat. And there will be locks, I added, on both girls' doors, yours too if you want. Privacy isn't punishment, it's a boundary. For once, no one argued. Insurance moved the way institutions move, slowly, then all at once. We camped in a hotel that smelled like modest hope. The twins' room in the house was a charred, wet mess. We made lists and calls and lists of calls. Neighbors dropped off casseroles you have to bake even when you don't have a kitchen. The book club ladies sent gift cards and a text chain full of green hearts. The filming neighbor apologized and gave us a flash drive in case it helps with insurance, and I forgave her because helpful is a better word than sorry when smoke still clings to your shoes. A week later, the department hosted a community safety night. We went. A firefighter placed 2 identical bedroom doors on stands. One was closed. One was open. He lit a small demonstration fire in a safe box and let smoke roll and data climb. The thermal camera showed the open room filling fast. The closed-door room stayed cooler, clearer, survivable longer. He pointed to the closed door and said, "This buys us minutes. Minutes are everything." Zoe squeezed my hand. Sammy's jaw tightened. Sloane cried quietly. Olivia took notes on her phone like she was trying to write a different ending. After the presentation, the officer with the braid found us. She smiled the way professionals smile when they actually mean it. "I'm glad you all came," she said. "I didn't expect to say this on a Friday night in a gym, but good luck, I echoed, and the words tasted like relief. We rebuilt our routines while the house was scrubbed of soot and memory. The twins started jobs at a coffee shop and a bookstore. They paid Zoe back in installments, not just for the makeup, but for everything you can reasonably itemize. Cords, hoodie, journal, the things you can keep at a price on the sheets she washed too often after strangers' hands touched her desk. The way she double-checked her bag every morning, those took longer. But effort counts. The girls knocked before entering any room. They left sticky notes that said, "Borrow," and returned by 7, like politeness could be practiced into muscle. Sometimes I caught Sammy staring at the wall like it still held smoke. He apologized to me in the one phrase I think actually counts. "You were right, and I was unkind about it." I told him to save the rest of his breath for being different. We moved back home after the contractors finished. Fresh drywall, new paint, fewer outlets per wall, hardwired smoke detectors, and no tapestries near electricity. The twins bought 1 surge-protected strip each and stuck bright labels on them like they were naming the future. Zoe asked to keep her lock, said yes before she finished the question. She painted the door a soft color that looks like morning. One night, months later, I stood at the end of the hall and noticed all the doors were slightly ajar. Not open, not closed. Something in between. It looked like boundaries learning to breathe. I've had a few normal fights since whose turn is trash. Why the dishwasher's not a suggestion, but those fights end with eye contact and nobody using the word defect to describe a 16-year-old-esque taste. On the anniversary of the fire, the department invited us to a pancake breakfast fundraiser. We went. We found the firefighter with soot on his jaw, now clean as a commercial. The officer with the braid flipped pancakes like that, too, was part of keeping people alive. We said thank you again. He said, as they always do, that it's their job. I disagree. Their job is showing up. The rest is grace. Sometimes people ask me if I regret letting family move in. I don't. Hard years make people strange. Divorces warp the edges. Grief makes order feel like control. Entitlement often hides in teenagers who were taught love is unlimited, But attention is a game of musical chairs. What I regret is how long I waited to act like Zoe. Its boundaries were real, just because they were inconvenient for adults who should have known better. If you re-listening to this, and you re-where I was torn between peace and the person you re-supposed to protect, choose the person by the lock, say the hard thing. Call the fire department before you need them by asking which outlets in your life you've overloaded on habit and hope. Here's the part I didn't expect. We forgave each other, not in one ceremony, but in 100 small chores and 1,000 days where no one walked into anyone's room without knocking. Sloan sent Zoe a link to a makeup palette and wrote, "I'll pay. I swear I won't touch it." Olivia asked Zoe to help her study for a math test, because apparently healthy boundaries are contagious. Iskoemi now keeps an extinguisher in his car like a talisman. He doesn't laugh when I test the smoke alarms every month. He's the one who made a rule about no aerosols near heat sources and stuck it on the fridge like a family motto we actually earned. And every night before Zoe sleeps, she closes her door. The click is quiet. The house doesn't mind. It sounds like safety. It sounds like a lesson. It sounds like the smallest noise in the world and the biggest relief I've ever known. If you made it this far, thank you for listening to the worst night of my life and the best thing I've learned. Like and subscribe if you believe respect beats entitlement. Comment your verdict. Was I overprotective or just on time? And if you've got a story about the night police and firefighters changed your family's mind, share it. Someone out there needs your warning more than your silence.